Welcome to Lakework University. I'm Charlie, and today we'll be reviewing patient-based reports. Let's get started.
Patient-based reports are very important because they give you insight into different ways that you can organize, isolate, and interact with your patient base. To get to the patient-based reports, simply go to the top middle of the screen and click on Reports. Once there, you'll see on the left side of the screen that the patient-based reports are already selected by default. Below that, we have our appointment-based and communication-based reports, which we'll cover in additional videos. Below the patient-based reports, you see that we have a number of pre-made reports that are available for you to review at any time. So for example, if you want a report of every active patient that you have on file, click on Active. That will give you a list of every single patient that Legwork sees with an active patient status inside your practice management software. You can also look at reports of everybody that is in recall. So everybody that is unscheduled, but due or will be due for their hygiene. So there may be people that are due 6 months from now, or people that were due 2 years ago, all on that list. When we do our example of a patient-based report that you can customize, we'll come back to recall and I can show you how you can isolate very specific demographics within your patient base that is due for recall. We can show you reports on things like who is an inactive patient inside your software. New patients within the last month so that you can keep track of your new patients and follow up with them. People who have been referred recently. People in reactivation, so people that are severely past due. And you can even create and save reports that you've made and customized yourself. So you'll know that it's a custom report if there's a red X next to it showing that you can delete that report. This is an example report of a email and mobile number report we wanted to do to see the email addresses and mobile numbers of specific patients. Now, we're going to go over what you can do with reports that are already made now. So let's head back up to Active, and I'll show you some of the ways that you can tweak this information to find even more specific information. So when we select a report, you'll get information at the top like, what are we organizing this report based on? Are we organizing it based on when patients were first created and synced into Legwork? When they were first referred, if they were a new patient? When they're due for recall? So is this a report that has to do with your recall? Is it a report that has to do with referrals? Is it a report that just has to do with organizing things based on when a patient was created? You can sort by either ascending or descending on whatever topic that is. And really handy, right here, you can adjust date ranges to hone in on very specific time frames so that only patients that are having to be interacted with from that time frame are showing up. You can also customize your reports. By customizing your reports, you get a little bit more insight into different things that you can adjust here. So for example, you can change the report type if you would like. Today we're only talking about patient-based reports, so we would leave that at patients. You see some of the fields that we've already covered in the last screen before the pop-up here came up. So most of the time you're going to want to start with created at, unless you're specifically dealing with a referral-based report or a recall-based report. Again, you have the date range information that you can customize. So if you want to find only people that have been created in your software and synced into Legwork within the last 30 days, well, then that means the new patients that have been added into your software over the last 30 days are going to show up in this report. Status is really important because if you want to include inactive or archived patients into your report, you'll need to add them in by selecting them from this list so that they show up in the report. By default, we're only pulling in active patients because typically those are the only people that you want to interact with. You can focus on whether they were referred or not. So if you want to see all of your active patients that have come from referrals, you could do that. If you wanted to focus on people that have been rewarded for their referrals, this is nice for you to be able to see, oh, did we actually send something out through Legwork to this patient? So this is kind of a nice way to also see if you've kind of had some patients slip through the cracks that you should have rewarded for a referral. So you could click yes on that if you wanted to find people who had been gifted or no people that had not been gifted, or either if you want both. In recall, so if you want to focus on people that are opted into recall and they are not on track, they're not scheduled, they don't have hygiene appointments on file, or if you want to just focus on people that are up to date or don't have a recall status, you could do that as well. More importantly, though, and most commonly interacted with when you're customizing, are going to be down here at the bottom of the columns. This is really helpful if you want to isolate just specific information. So for example, in this report, I might not need address information and zip code information. So what I can do is I can come down here and I can click on the X next to the information I don't need in the report. And when I do that, it'll remove that information. Once we've done that, you can see that just the name, phone number, and email address of the patient is what's showing up in the report, showing that what I customized actually, adjusted inside the template. So let's do an example of what we can do for a specific report. So let's say we want to do a report of all the patients that are due for hygiene next month. So I would start off by asking myself, okay, is this a patient-based report? Is this an appointment-based report or a communication-based report? So are we focusing in on patient-based data? Are we looking at appointment data like scheduled appointments or missed appointments or canceled appointments? Or are we talking about things that Legwork sends out of the software? Well, in our recall example, since recall dates and continuing care dates are tied at the patient level, this is a patient-based report. So we would start off by knowing that it's a patient-based report. The second step would be to ask ourselves, is there a report that Legwork has already made that we can use as a springboard to find the information that we want? And there actually is. The In Recall report is a great report to help us isolate people in recall. Now, again, for HIPAA reasons, we're not generating real patient data here, but all you would see here would be the names of patients, their recall date, and contact information to contact them. Now, what we would do is when we first click on the In Recall report, we would get a big scary number showing us the total number of patients that don't have hygiene appointments scheduled but have a continuing care date on file. Now, this is going to look pretty scary because when this report first comes up, we're looking into the future as well as into the past. So there may be patients on here that you don't consider super relevant or urgent to contact yet, but we're displaying them here because in the future or in the past, they don't have hygiene scheduled, but they have a recall date or a continuing care date on file. And we care about them having an appointment scheduled, and so we're putting them on this report. But for our example report, we wanted to focus on just the people that are due for hygiene next month and still aren't scheduled. So how do we isolate from this larger pool to find that specific group of patients? Well, what you're going to do is you're going to go to the date range at the top, and you're going to scroll down and go to next 30 days. You could also do next month. That would work great too if you want to really focus in on specific calendar dates. Or you can also go to custom and choose a custom start date and end date for that report. But for our example, we'll choose next month. Once we do that, Legwork will automatically look through all of those patients that are due for hygiene but not scheduled yet that were in the previous base report, and it's now isolated just the people due for hygiene next month. So now you have a really great actionable list here to interact with people that are a little bit more relevant. If you're trying to be on top of your hygiene next month, this is a great way for you to get people scheduled and to have a list that your team can work off of to interact with those patients and hopefully get them back in. Now, even better than that, I've talked about this as if it's just purely an informational-based report, but we wouldn't be Legwork if that was the case. What we have here in the top right-hand corner of the screen are going to be some icons that you're probably somewhat familiar with based on previous tutorial videos. You see that we have the paper airplane icon. That allows you to send an email blast to everybody that's been isolated in this report. This means that when you generate a very specific and honed in report that focuses on a specific portion of your patient base, you can actually send out a message to that individual group without bothering the rest of your patients. You can also send a postcard using the envelope icon. So if you want to send a postcard out to the patient, simply click on that, and this will send a postcard blast out to all of the patients contained in the report and won't bother anybody outside of the report. Again, this operates exactly the same as sending messages that we covered in previous tutorial videos. The video to look at would be the Patients tab, Sending Mass and Individual Messages video. You can go to that video to see how to queue up a message and write a custom message to a patient or send a blast out to patients. All those same concepts will apply here. Next to the two ways that you can interact with the group you've isolated, you also have an export to Excel option. This is really great because this allows you to have all of the spreadsheet processing capabilities that Excel or another spreadsheet tool will have that you can use to color code or sort or isolate different information and delete columns, different things like that. It really gives you all of the flexibility that those programs offer you. So if you like working in spreadsheets, you can take any information you've isolated in a report, export it to Excel, and be able to then interact with the report in Excel. This is really great too because if you need to get a printable copy of a report, you can export it to Excel and print it out from there after kind of cleaning it up a little bit and making sure that it's nice and presentable. So to do that, you simply click on Export to Excel. You're going to name it. You're going to click Export. You're going to have a pop-up to save that. You'll save it, and then you're done. That's all it takes. Very straightforward, very simple. If you want to have the entire screen expanded to just have the report on the screen, you can click the Make Full Screen button on the far right, and that'll give you the ability to view the reports without any of the navigation tabs on the left. Now, with patient-based reports and all of our reports, there are literally hundreds of thousands of combinations of settings you can tweak to get customized reports. This training is really meant to give you a nice refresher or overview so that you can give it a shot to create the reports that you're looking to make. It isn't very difficult. Typically, you're going to ask yourself, what category of report is it? Is it a patient-based report, an appointment-based report, or a communications-based report? Is there a pre-made report that will help me? If so, you can start with that report. You can then ask yourself, do I need to customize or tweak this report to get closer to the information I'm trying to isolate? And oftentimes, the date range is going to be all you need to do to find that information. And in some cases, you'll customize the report and oftentimes just adjust the columns. Usually you're not going to be adjusting information here very often. However, in some complex reports, it may be required for you to do that. As always, if you have any questions about how to make a specific type of patient-based report or any other report in the software, Legwork Support is here, happy to help you. So just reach out to us. We're more than happy to assist you make the report of your dreams that helps make your day a whole lot easier. Thank you very much for staying for this tutorial, and have a great day.